Hey guys, Skarloey Railway 01, aka the Engine Inspector here today. I'm starting the Season 21 mini reviews, or vlog reviews. These are going to be a little more informal than my usual reviews. As you can see, I'm not wearing the white shirt. I lost the hat years ago, so that's gone. But yeah, I wanted to do sort of mini short vlog reviews just to get my thoughts out on Season 21 as it happened. Do something a little bit different, a little less formal. These are completely unscripted. I'm just gonna go off my notes here and tell you guys what I thought of each episode. You also probably notice I'm not in my usual recording area. There's usually a big Dark Knight poster behind me. It's my bedroom at home, but now I'm off at college, so this is the inside of the dorm room in my college apartment. You can kind of see some of this stuff in here. Anyway, let's get on to Season 21. So the first episode of Season 21 is Springtime for Diesel. I'm sort of going to go through these, like I'm going to talk about the good things first, the bad things second, and then sort of wrap it up with a rating. I'm also going to lump Springtime for Diesel and The Most Singular Engine together for this review. I'm not sure if I'm always going to do this, but these two I felt like I had to talk about together because there's something that I'll get to about halfway through this review that really made me feel like I need to talk about them as one story rather than two separate episodes. So anyway, let's start with the good stuff. Very cool opening shot right off the bat, and it's good to see that we're getting thematic music again. That's something that obviously we had in the classic series quite a bit, but it hasn't had as big a presence in recent years, so it's nice to hear Diesel's new theme. I don't know how much I like this theme, but I like that they're using thematic music again. It's a nice touch. It's something that I'm definitely a fan of. There are some great comic moments in this episode. Most notably for me is the moment with the passengers in the cab and flying all over the place. And someone mentioned, and I don't know who said this, so I'm sorry, said that this might be the writer's sort of dig at the bouncing that we saw in Journey Beyond Sodor. And there's no bouncing here, as far as I noticed anyway. If there was, it was pretty subtle. I liked the little homage to Old Faithful here. It was very kind of ironic given that Daisy and Skarloey are so antithetical of each other, but it was kind of funny, especially with Daisy always talking about her springs and now a spring is broken. Even though that doesn't make sense from a railway standpoint, the highly sprung thing was just a pun, as far as I can tell. It's just a pun on highly strung. But it's sort of a nice touch. It's sort of a nice little twist on her sort of catchphrase, if you will. One thing that I did love about this episode was a small thing, but all the engines are working in places that make sense. We see, for example, Ryan is pulling Daisy back to the works from Harwick with Judy and Jerome, and we set up last season that Judy and Jerome are going to be the breakdown cranes for the Harwick branch line in that part of the island, so it's nice to see that they're there. Also, we see Ari and Bert gossiping with Mavis at the quarry in a great little scene, and it sort of seems to be that they're established that they work on that branch line now. We've seen them there just in the background of like 6 episodes, I think. I would prefer them to be at the Ironworks, but this works too. I mean, I'm glad that they have a location, because one of my biggest pet peeves has been that the engines just sort of float around everywhere, with a few exceptions. I love that in the Railway series you had engines that worked in a very specific place, and they interacted sometimes at junctions and whatnot, but for the most part they were more or less had a routine, which makes it feel more real. So I love seeing that being incorporated here. Den and Dart were great in this episode. I love that Den seems to have grown as a character since we last really saw him in the episode Den and Dart, or Dart and Den, whatever that one was called. We get a twist on the what he means joke, which was a Miller era thing that really never worked for me. Here they totally make fun of it, and it totally pays off. I love that Dart totally gets wrong what Den means the first time they make that joke. He just says, no, what I meant is what I said. You don't need to correct me or explain my thoughts. he seems more articulate now, which is really nice.
Look, Dart! A diesel rail car!
What he means is, welcome to the Diesel Works.
No, I meant, look, Dart, a diesel rail car.
And there's also a good payoff at the end of the episode with where Dart says, I have no idea what she means, Sten, when Daisy says, merci beaucoup.
I have no idea what she means, then.
Neither do I.
That was just a great little moment. It's sort of a good payoff for that running gag, and hopefully we won't see that sort of forced what he means thing, at least not as much anymore. I think this was a good way to play with that trope a little bit. Lastly, the moments between Daisy and Diesel all felt very sincere, which is to me one of the strengths of the Brenner era as a whole, is we get these character moments, even in an episode like this one, which I thought was just kind of okay, not great. We do get these good character moments that never feel, to me, don't feel forced. And here it didn't feel forced to me either. We have this very sincere apology from Diesel while Daisy is sleeping. And then at the end, we have another scene where Daisy actually confronts Diesel about his apology, and the scene that follows with them working it out together is very sincere, and it feels like they sort of get each other in a way, and it works very well, and this relationship is interesting, and I'll be curious to see how they use it in future. Now, for the not-so-good stuff, I'm just going to get this out of the way. The messy big poo line was... whoa. It was a stinker. It totally didn't work, and I hope that toilet humor, if you will, is not going to be a feature of this show, because it feels like it's a pretty low cut kind of joke, and it really didn't work for me. It felt out of place. Everything that's been said about this has already been said, so if you want to know more, go read someone else's opinion on it, but really it just does not work. The gossip circle with Arian, Bert, and Mavis is really great, but I don't think that whole sequence works with Diesel going around saying, why does everyone always blame me? It gets repetitive, and it's kind of, the pacing of the episode at that point kind of slams it goes way slower. It doesn't quite grind to a halt, but it dramatically interrupts the rhythm of the story, I feel. And one thing that could have made it better for me is if Diesel is visually, or in the way he's speaking, gets more and more guilty. We don't really see that. He obviously is feeling guilty, but we don't see a progression. So if each time he stopped, first time he sees, I think it's Arian, Bert, and Mavis. Let's say the first time he seems like a little bit guilty, then when he sees Paxton, he's like even more guilty, and so on. If it escalated with each encounter, I feel like it would pay off better, but in this case it doesn't escalate, it just sort of stays static, so we don't get a payoff. The payoff isn't as strong as it could have been if it escalated, and it slows down the flow of the story a great deal in a way that I don't think helps an episode that has sort of a weak premise to begin with. Also, there was not enough Diesel and Daisy interaction in this episode, which surprised me. That seems like ripe for comedy moments. These two antithetical characters, actually, they're not even that antithetical. They're very similar in a lot of ways. We've never seen them interact, and it would be interesting to see more of them together. We didn't get quite a lot, except for those sincere moments, which worked, but I wanted to see more of them. I wanted to maybe see more of a comic edge to their relationship, but we'll see where it goes, and I'll have more thoughts on that in the Most Singular Engine. And the last thing I want to touch on is the ending of this episode feels very weird, given what happens in the Most Singular Engine. So that seems to be a good transition point for me to talk about the second episode of Season 21, which is, like I said, the Most Singular Engine. So let's start with talking about the good stuff, and then we'll get into the issue I had with the ending of Springtime for Diesel and how it plays into this episode. First of all, Diesel seems much more in character here. The Diesel episodes of the last several seasons have been easily the weakest, with a few exceptions. For example, I think the worst episode of Season 2020 was Diesel and the Ducklings. Diesel has sort of had this, he's a mean guy with a soft side that he doesn't want to be have shown. And while that's fine, it doesn't really It's not the same Diesel, let's say, that we saw in the Railway series and in Season 2, even Season 3 and Season 6. In this episode, we sort of get a return to form, if you will, for Diesel. He's not exactly the same as he was in the Railway series, but instead of just bumping other engines and being annoying, he's actually scheming. He's devious. He's not being like a prankster with that sort of gooey soft side, which we saw in the last episode and even in Diesel and the Ducklings. He is quite maniacal and is spreading rumors to cause another engine harm, which is a lot like Dirty Work, wherein he spreads lies about Duck to get Duck in trouble. Here he gets fed up with Daisy and he wants her to be taken down a peg, so he starts spreading rumors that she has a beef with Harvey and hoping that they will confront each other and it will deflate her ego a bit. Ironically, it doesn't work, which actually is a really funny payoff at the end of the episode. But it's nice to see Diesel is more in character here. His episodes have been noticeably weak as of late. Don't really like his characterization in Springtime for Diesel, and oh my god, Diesel and the Ducklings was easily the worst episode of Season 20 by a long shot. So it's nice to see them back. It's nice to see Diesel back into a more maniacal sort of role. Speaking of Dirty Work, we get to see Duck and Diesel on screen together for like a split second, and I actually missed it the first time I watched the episode. I had to go back and take notes, and then I was like, oh look, Duck and Diesel are on screen. They don't say anything to each other, but it's just kind of cool to see them on the screen together for the first time, I think, since Season 3. I want them to have an episode together so badly, but as long as it is in the vein of this episode, not so much in the vein of Springtime for Diesel. I want to see him being mean. I want to see that they have unresolved issues, or even maybe retell Duck and the Diesel, because I'm sure no kids today know that story, but it's one of the best 3-story arcs in the television series and definitely in the Railway series. It's fantastic, and I'd love to see that dynamic again. Like I said before, Diesel's plan totally backfires, and it's a really good payoff. It's a good sort of irony to see that Diesel's trying to make Harvey and Daisy hate each other, but it ends up making them bond together, which starts off, that bonding starts with this Eye of the Tiger like showdown scene, which, by the way, if that gag happens one more time, it will totally not work. Here it just barely worked. I didn't think it worked that well in the Glenn and Steven episode. I just think it's sort of a dumb, cheap joke. But one more time, and seriously, it will like totally not work. I think it works a little, but it's not great, but it's not horrible yet. Kind of like the slow-mo wasn't horrible, and now it's really annoying to me. Also, the anticlimax with the bunny at the end of that is kind of weak. I feel like they could have had something else interrupt that would have been much funnier and would have worked better to pay off that really dramatic build-up. And the scene afterwards where Harvey and Daisy make up, it works really well. They have a railway realistic sort of scenario that happens where Daisy takes extra passengers to save time with Harvey clearing up the mess. And it's just it makes sense, and it's a good, easy way to have them resolve their problems. Also, a really nice nod to the way she does it when I keep saying Ryan and Daisy, when Harvey and Daisy pull up to Harwick. That's really great continuity thing. Like, oh, things have actually happened in the past that we're acknowledging. It's not just like a time void where we never reference events that happened in previous stories. There is a sense that these characters have been through some things and have come to this point. It's not just like in the new series where nothing referenced anything else and there was no sense of time, no sense that time had passed, other than the fact that we see changing seasons. So that's nice. I always like it when we get little callbacks to older stories to see that there is a passage of time and that these characters remember things that happened before, and they have, in a way, grown from the experiences that they have. And also, at the very end of the episode, the moral delivery from Daisy works super well. It makes sense for her character, even though she's very much a flawed character. We're useful because of what we do, not our design is sort of it's a good message, and it's delivered in a way that's not, it's direct, but it's not hitting a dead horse. It's sort of like, it's presented straightforward, but it's not like Diesel apologizing and confessing that he's learned the moral, which is what we saw in the early CGI series and the new series all the time. So I really enjoyed the way that that all wrapped up. Now, to the not so good stuff. These are some nitpicky things, because I thought most of this episode was really good and worked better than Springtime for Diesel. The "my bottom is wet" line was majorly cringeworthy, not as bad as the big messy poo one, but it still was... I hope this isn't a regular thing, let's just say that. It seemed to be just, you know, lowbrow humor. And I don't like that they feel that they have to resort to that, or someone feels that they have to resort to that. Now, the ending of this episode, to me, seems to set up the events of Springtime for Diesel, which is the reason I lumped these two together, because I wanted to talk about this, what I feel is kind of a continuity issue here. It seems like this episode takes place before Springtime for Diesel. In Springtime for Diesel, we see Diesel being mean, annoying, pranky Diesel, causing trouble. And then at the end, he seems to be all nice, and he's had a change of heart, which we've seen a million times and it never sticks. I don't even know why they're trying to do this anymore, if they're just going to revert him back. Just pick one. He doesn't have to have a redemptive arc every time. Look at the classic series. He can be foiled and still be the same character. He can still be evil. Thomas and the Evil Diesel has probably the best redemptive Diesel arc. Even that, I feel, is a little bit eh. But here it feels like he just constantly is becoming a good guy at the end of the episode, and they're trying to show Diesel's not that bad, but then in the next appearance of Diesel, he's the antagonist again, and I like him as the antagonist, and it's okay to have a character that's just kind of a jerk all the time, and every time he's foiled, he gets mad, and it encourages him to sort of keep being angry at the world. So, circling back, at the end of Springtime for Diesel, Diesel's a new character. He's happy, he's got an actual friend for a change, which is kind of nice. But he goes straight back to his old ways in the Most Singular Engine, which makes me think that the Most Singular Engine is supposed to be the first episode of Season 21. And then we have a 2-episode arc wherein Diesel schemes, plots to get Daisy in trouble with Harvey, so to speak. And then, after he learns his lesson about that, he is causing trouble, not as big of trouble, but he's still causing trouble with her. And then she teaches him this lesson about friendship. So we have this payoff where he was mean to her, and then he actually causes her to be damaged and regrets it. So then he ends up changing his ways. So we would have a progression where he is scheming, taken down a peg by Daisy, and then he's still kind of upset about that. So he's bumping all the engines and then breaks her and then has this redemptive resolution to the plot. It doesn't really make sense the other way around, because it feels like we're back to square one with Diesel then. So hopefully on some DVD, these episodes will be in the opposite order. Most Singular Engine happening first, followed by Springtime for Diesel. So we see this actual progression of Diesel's character, and it's not just like, oh, the last episode didn't happen, we are just starting over. And what makes me think this is supposed to be in the opposite order is that it's the same two characters. If it was Diesel and Toby in Springtime for Diesel, or vice versa, it would not bother me so much, but the fact that it's Daisy and Diesel suggests to me that it's like Mavis and Toby's Tightrope, wherein we have these two characters who go through this relationship development. And if you watched Toby's Tightrope before Mavis, the growth doesn't make sense. It would have Mavis revert back to her old ways before growing up again. But the way they're written in the Railway series and the way that they play out in Season 3, it totally makes sense. Where Mavis is cocky and wants to do things her own way, but then Toby brings her down a little bit, but then she still sort of has this little bit of her that wants to do things her way. causes an accident for Toby, just like Diesel causes an accident for Daisy, and then it's resolved from there. Pretty simple and straightforward. So I feel like these episodes are similar to season 3 in a way, but for some reason they aired in the wrong order, so the payoff doesn't really work. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the first 2 episodes of season 21. Please leave a comment below, or I'm going to post this on Sodor Island forums and probably on Twitter, so feel free to interact with me there as well. I'm excited to do more of these videos. Sorry if it got a little rambly. I'll try to streamline my thoughts a little bit next time, but this one I just sort of had a lot on my mind and a lot I wanted to say. So looking forward to the next episode, and we'll see you soon. Bye.